Hey, we are live again. This is the 3Gen podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Joseph Mojo McCarthy, along with my buddies Rick Olson and John Wyrow. And we have a special guest tonight, as we always do. This is such a fabulous time for us to get to know somebody. Usually, our guest is somebody that one of the three of us already has a relationship with, which is also the case tonight. And so first, I'm going to ask John to introduce himself, tell us what's going on in your life, then off to Rick. And if Rick, could you bring Brad into the conversation at that point?
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. And, Brad, you just made me laugh. Your last name, Houle, rhymes with school. Mine's a little more difficult. It's Wyrow, rhymes with eyebrow is the closest thing I can come up with. So that's what my mom said when she was teaching as well. But greetings. I'm excited to dig in with you, Brad. I'm here in my basement in Frankenmuth, Michigan, and excited to talk to you West Coasters.
Very good. Well, this is a very exciting night for me. Brad has been a dear friend for 20 plus years. I've had the joy of being in his home. He's been in my home. I'm crazy about this man's family, and I followed his career. It's a fantastic career. We're going to get into some very interesting things tonight. One story about Brad from this week. Just yesterday, I was speaking in Birmingham, Alabama. I was speaking at Corporate America, one of the fabulous corporate credit unions in America. And Brad is a member of Corporate America. Brad also serves on their board at Corporate America. And when I was talking to the leaders of Corporate America, it's like they all came alive when I mentioned the name Brad Houle. Brad, you have a huge following down there at Corporate America. And the guy who represents the state of California, John, said, that man runs a fantastic ship out there. And he just had the very best things to say about you and your team. So some praise from yesterday from Alabama.
Thank you.
Let me go ahead and introduce our guest tonight. So Brad is the CEO of California Highway Patrol Credit Union. I think a lot of us got our first exposure to the California Highway Patrol through a program called CHIPS many years ago with Ponch and John. And we were intrigued with the California Highway Patrol. There's always been something magical about that whole organization. When my friend Brad left Wisconsin, where he'd been an outstanding CEO of a credit union here in Wisconsin, and went west, I was so pleased to know that he went to the California Highway Patrol Credit Union. I've spent a lot of time out there with Brad and his team. The curtain has been pulled back for me. I have discovered the most amazing things about the Highway Patrol, what they're all about. Brad and his team have managed to give unbelievable service to the Highway Patrol throughout the state of California. And so tonight, it's just a real joy to bring this terrific friend to you. And Brad, we're excited about exploring all kinds of things with you tonight. But in a little bit, we'll ask you some questions. I know you've been listening to the podcast. Why don't you go ahead and give a greeting to all of our listeners out there, and then we'll probably start firing some questions your way.
Well, thank you for having me. I believe the weather's probably a little better here than it is up by you, Rick. I don't know what it's like today, but that's one of the pluses of California. But thank you for your kind words regarding our organization and what we do. It is an honor to serve the Highway Patrol. It really is.
All right. Well, thank you. And again, we are delighted to have you on here tonight. And all three of us jump in and start asking questions. I'll probably get it started tonight, but we'll all just tag team as the evening goes along. One of the things I've always found interesting about you, Brad, is how quickly you jumped into leadership. A lot of people aspire to move into leadership, to move into significant roles. It happened in your life much quicker than almost anyone else that I know. So if you could go back to the early days, tell us about that, the early part of your career and the leadership doors that opened, and maybe a little bit about how that all happened.
Sure. So I was raised around the credit union movement. I was raised around phenomenal credit union leaders. So I just from a very early age, I was aware of the servant leadership, the way that they served the community and the responsibilities that they had in running credit unions. Fast forward, when I was working for the Michigan Credit Union League, I had a phenomenal leader, Don Severa, who hired me at the league, and I'm so grateful that he took a chance on me. I was just a young kid out of college, and Don really taught me. He taught me, to work hard, and he taught me the value of getting a good night's rest, which I think is very important as a young man.
Right.
And I was able to follow in his footsteps, and Don had faith in me, Rick, which I think was something that I didn't realize until later on in life was such an integral part of me being able to take that leap and become a CEO at such a young age. And I did so when I became a CEO and ran a credit union, when I probably didn't have any business running a credit union at that time, but I learned under fire. And to be honest with you, I think it was the village that I had around me in Michigan, because I knew so many CEOs growing up that I'm still friends with today.
Sure.
And they're at the end of their career, but at that point they were probably a little older than I am now. But they supported me. So if I needed help, I could call and I could say, hey, how would you handle this situation with the corporate, or how would you handle the situation with the regulator? So a lot of people will ask me, well, how did you do that at such a young age? I did that because I had a support system. And I think that's what young people need today is they need that support system, and we have to pass that knowledge on to them as leaders.
It's awesome. You've talked about a couple of really pivotal key things there, a support system, and then just somebody who believed in you, maybe even more than you believed in yourself.
Yeah.
But what a difference that makes in my own
someone
life.
Who pushed me too. He kind of pushed me out of the nest. I think that's what parents are supposed to do. I've learned that now that I have an 8-year-old daughter. And I think Don did that. He kind of pushed me out of the league to say, you can do more. I have faith in you. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for Donald Severa.
I love it. Well, you jumped into the deep end of the pool in a hurry. How old were you when you became a CEO, Brad?
I was 23.
Just let that one sink in, folks. What were you doing at age 23? The man is running a credit union. That's awesome. Joe and John, why don't you guys jump in? We're already off to an interesting start here.
Well, I'm just getting to know you, Brad. I'm already fascinated by your story, and your attitude is already contagious. So thank you for the energy that you bring to this conversation, and even offline when you reached out to me on LinkedIn. So I can only imagine some of the dynamics that must have been going on when you're tapped to be the CEO at 23 and you're younger than pretty much everybody that you're supervising. So talk a little bit about those dynamics, because there's your confidence, and there's also the people above you who think, who is he? I've been here way longer, and he doesn't know. So you got the support of Don, but what about the other people who now they have to look to you as their leader, and you're much younger than them? Tell us a little bit about those dynamics.
Yeah. One of the things I liked in your previous podcast with Vicky from Frankenmuth, I appreciated her comment regarding being born and raised on a farm, and I shared that with you. Yeah. My grandfather taught me at a very early age. He said, we're all the same. Everyone gets dressed the same way in the morning. So treat everyone the way you'd want to be treated. And that's what I did going into, that first leadership role, is I treated the management team, I treated the staff, I treated the community with the respect that I would want, from them. And I think, you get what you give. And I just became a part of the community. And I'm still friends with, the leaders from that credit union and the staff who, they've went on, they're now working at other credit unions or banks. And I've seen them, develop over time. And it's those lifelong relationships. That's really what it comes down to. Leadership is all about relationships. It's not about running the credit union. It's about the relationships with the people who are running the credit union. You're just there to help guide them.
Excellent.
Amen. And isn't that so prevalent in the credit union industry? It is. I mean, it is a relationship industry. Never have I seen. I was so shocked when I started working for Frankenmuth Credit Union to see the collaboration between other credit unions. Where, okay, you're a competitor, but you know what? Let's share some best practices and let's just do something that's good for the overall movement. Excellent. So, Brad, I want to point out a couple things that this is just really fascinating to me. First of all, you have worked and lived in Michigan. You have worked and lived in Wisconsin, and you now work and live in California. You are the first podcaster, our first guest that we've interviewed that checks all those boxes. So you are unique, my friend. That's awesome.
He's definitely one of us. All of
That's right.
Yeah.
He is us. Nice observation there, Mr. Wyra.
Well, and John, one thing that we have in common, and going back to the other podcast that you had, I love the comment that you made about meeting your wife at the credit union. I met my wife at Forward Financial Credit Union. So,
well,
I think that's what we should share with young people. It's a great place to find your future wife or husband.
Right. More than a paycheck.
Wow. That takes a benefit package to a whole nother level.
Yes, it does.
Well,
yeah,
let's
and ironically, it was my mother-in-law who connected us. She was my vice president of marketing and HR, and she was relentless in trying to get Jen and I together, and it was the best thing that ever happened. And now we have a little girl, and it's just that's the best thing that's happened in the credit union industry for me.
That's great.
Brad, the parallels are blowing my mind right now. We were at a credit union event. My mother-in-law does not work in the credit union industry, but we were at a credit union event, and I actually met her and started talking to her first, and then she started, hey, you got to meet my daughter here, and same story. And let's keep the parallels rolling. You also are involved with consumer credit counseling. You are familiar with GreenPath. Actually, they used to be GreenPath Debt Solutions when I worked there. I think they're GreenPath Financial Wellness now, and that was where I started my career. So both of us, our entire careers in the nonprofit financial sector and involved in all the both the credit counseling, and then I think it's a really cool place to be. You're like, okay, there's some people that really need some help here, and you need the credit counseling to get to this point. Okay, now you're at a better spot. Now let's talk about getting loans, building credit. Using loans and using credit cards responsibly. So just curious, I know you grew up there, but why continue in this world? What is the passion that you are in this nonprofit financial sector?
Well, because we truly make a difference in our members' lives. And whether you're looking at a credit union or GreenPath or Balance Consumer Credit Counseling Services of San Francisco, we're truly making a difference in their lives. And that's what I love about credit counseling is if you can sit down with someone and you can help them and they can help their family, you're helping hundreds of people and eventually thousands of people. In fact, we took it to the next level at CAHP. I actually had all of our staff certified as financial counselors. And I know, you were in charge of the operations center, I believe, the contact center, correct?
Yep.
So you know what it takes to have them pass that test, become certified as a financial counselor. I challenged all of my staff at CAHP to become certified financial counselors. And what I told them is I said, you may not pass the test the first time. I don't care if you have to take it 3 or 4 times, but let's learn the concepts of what it means to be a counselor so that you can help our members. And what's great about that is they ended up taking that knowledge and bringing it back to their families, because we have several team members who they're first generation. Their parents never had that opportunity like I did, where I had a mom and dad who, they made me balance a checkbook, and I had to have a debit card when it was available and an ATM card. Those things weren't available to some of our team members. So they were able to take that knowledge and bring that back home. And once they saw how that helped their parents and their siblings, they were passionate about helping our members with that knowledge. So we actually have a state certified class that we were the first credit union in the state of California to receive certification from the state of California. So when our members attend one of our classes, they actually receive continuing education hours. So first responders are required to sit through, just like a CPA, you have to go through so many hours every year. Our members, when they go through our training, they will receive continuing education hours from the state of California. So that was a 3-year project for us to receive that certification, but it's truly paid off because the staff see how we're helping them.
Wow.
How's
Wow,
that for
wow,
an
wow.
answer, John?
That's just excellent. And you're right. That certification, that test is not easy. Though all those different tests like that, and like to be a housing counselor, the HUD exams. It's one of those like state exams where it's like legalese all over the place. You don't know what is really being asked. But the fact that you have all of your staff do that is so powerful. I mean, I just can't get over it. Like you said, you impact one person that's impacting so many others. That's excellent.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. And because now we're certified, our members actually show up for the classes, right? Because I think that's the biggest challenge for credit unions today is everyone's so busy, right? They're busy with technology in their lives and everything that's happening in the world. So how do you get them to attend the class, right? Well, certify it and give them credit for attending it.
So cool.
Yeah.
If you certify, they will come. That is a great story. Let's move forward. Michigan to Wisconsin. You came to Wisconsin. You left John's state. You came to my state. Came to Wisconsin. I went over to visit you many times there. It was challenging, Brad. I'm all the way on the west side. You're all the way on the east side. You made me drive 240 miles on a 2-lane road.
That's the worst drive.
Highway 8, God bless it, dodging deer for 240 miles. But it was always worth it. You built a wonderful thing over there.
Thank you.
Talk to us a little bit about the Wisconsin experience. You're right there on kind of the Wisconsin UP line. And tell us about that. One of the things I do want to touch base on, you rebranded, gave a fantastic name, but talk to us a little bit about that second stop on your journey.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to let the listeners know that when you are driving from Dallas, Wisconsin to Niagara, Wisconsin, if you get behind a fifth wheel, it can add an hour to your drive. So it's serious business.
You got that right. Lord help you if the combine pulls out.
So Rick, rebranding was really, that was, it was critical to the organization because Niagara Area Credit Union was founded by the Niagara paper mill in 1948. And just before the Great Recession, Cerberus took over the paper mill and then they shut it down. And it was devastating to our community. Devastating in the fact that 3 generations of our members had worked at that paper mill. Ouch. Or were working at the paper mill.
Yeah.
Fathers and sons were working at the paper mill at the same time when it shut down. Just think about that for a minute, how that can impact a community like that.
Yep.
So what we did is we ended up merging in a credit union from Marinette, Wisconsin. We rebranded both organizations to become Forward Financial Credit Union. I converted the organization to receive CDFI designation so that we could work with the U.S. Treasury Department and that we could work with the county to provide business loans so that we could help some of these people start small businesses in the area and try to reinvent themselves. And that's what we did, at Forward Financial. And they are a phenomenal organization, even today, helping every type of business you can imagine. And we also moved across state lines. That was the other way that we diversified as well, is we built an office in Iron Mountain, Michigan. And we, Rick, one of the things that you and I were talking about earlier was technology. We were first to market with a new concept coming into the branch. It was a cafe. When you'd walk in, we had coffee. You'd walk up to recyclers where the members would stand next to you. And we were the first credit union to do that. We did that in 2006 when we started that. Whoa. So credit unions weren't thinking about that. And that all happened, because I attended the Q's CEO Institute, which I highly recommend for anyone who's interested in going into credit union leadership. And during one of the classes, we were at Wharton and we learned about this bank that was doing this, and we actually went and visited one of the branches, and we saw these recyclers, we saw the cafe concept, and we totally rebranded that branch to be a very interactive, high-tech branch with a community center. And it is the heart of the community today. And the community center is available 24/7. It will unlock and lock on its own. You book it, you're responsible for it, you sign an agreement, and it's yours for whatever you need it for. And you've seen that, Rick, too.
You know what? I've been in credit unions in 46 states. I have been in billion-dollar plus credit unions. What you guys put together at Forward Financial was just, it was stunning, absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
And just the comfortable feel of that place. You know, when you went there, I'd worked with credit unions prior to going there, but when I knew I was going to go meet with you at Niagara area credit union, it's like Niagara. Now, I've been at the Falls, and it was just so hard to come to grips with that name in a Wisconsin community. And when you went to Forward Financial, it's like, oh my word, that is so perfect for who you guys are, what you're trying to convey, et cetera.
Well, the one thing I wouldn't want to do is I wouldn't want to try to do that project again today. I wouldn't want to tackle it because just because of the cost of building today and supply chain issues,
yeah.
I can't even begin to imagine the headache with that. We actually purchased the lot between Walmart and Home Depot in Iron Mountain, Michigan, right? And it just happened. And that's one thing that I do is I always ask people, I'm like, well, why can't we ask? You know, so I asked the question, I'm like, do you think that lot's available? And everyone said, oh, no. Walmart owns that. Oh, no, Home Depot owns that. Well, come to find out they didn't. The developer owned it, right? So we purchased the property from the developer. We developed a retail center, and then we partnered to develop a condo association with an end cap. And that brought new business to that area, and it put us in between Walmart and Home Depot. And Walmart in Iron Mountain, Michigan, right, is the Mecca, right? And,
absolutely.
And it's just it's such a huge success story. And when the mill shut down, that is what truly helped us get over the hump and get through that and grow the organization. So, but I wouldn't want to do it today because I can't imagine building something like that. But I had a great partner. Lamakia helped me with that, and they're a great design build firm. But I can't imagine the price tag today.
Cool.
Now, as a marketing and branding guy that's been doing this for quite a long time, I went through the rebranding and renaming of a university. I know that is pretty complicated because people have lots of feelings tied into the history and the name, right?
Yeah.
So to get people on board with a rebranding, especially when you're changing the name of something that they've been attached to and they assign meaning way beyond the title, years and generations in history, and you talked about just this the mill and how important that was to the community.
Oh,
so how
huge.
help us understand, how do you get everybody on board when there's so much emotion wrapped around what was, and help them understand that what can be maybe even better than what they've known?
Well, first of all, what I think you need to realize as a leader is that your idea may not be the only way or the best way to achieve the goal. Forward Financial was not the name that I wanted, right? Just think about that for a second, right?
That is interesting.
So, and I don't know if I've ever shared that with you, Rick, but
I didn't know that, Brad.
But I approached it from the standpoint, we need to come to this. Everyone needs to feel a sense of achievement, belonging, and contribution at the end of this. If they don't, it's going to fail, right? So you bring in a third party, they help you identify, why we're making the change, what would represent the way we're going to serve the community. Forward, for example, is Wisconsin's state motto. That's why we ended up choosing it. And the marketing firm that came to us sold us on it and sold me on it, even though it wasn't our first choice. It wasn't my first choice. And then we all voted on it, and everyone came behind that, right? Everyone was behind it because they felt the ABCs. If we wouldn't have went through that process, Forward Financial would not be as successful as it is today. So really, I think that's the most critical part, is to be, as a leader, to allow other people to make the decision. And I think that's something that I've learned over the years, is that there's more than one way to get from point A to point B. Just be flexible.
the phrase that came to mind, the opposite way, is to say my way or the highway, which I thought was pretty cute because you're now at the Highway Patrol Credit Union.
Yeah.
So it was your way, wasn't your way, so it was the highway, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But Joe, I was worried about that in a small community with a credit union that was founded in 1948. Niagara Area Credit Union was an industry leader, and to make that change was huge. But if we wouldn't have made that change with the closure of the mill, and if we wouldn't have expanded across state lines, the credit union wouldn't be there today. And it's such an important part of the community. Local representation is so important, and that's why credit unions are so critical to small communities.
Excellent.
So you, Brad, you're such a everything I'm gathering from you is just a forward thinker. You're willing to dare. You're willing to try new things. You're willing to take risks, and it seems you always want to be on the front side of innovation. This is very similar to the CEO, my CEO at Franklin with Credit Union, Vicky Schmitzer. But I'm just curious, how do you balance that? Because I feel like, if you're always trying to be at the front line of innovation, at some point you might make a decision that you might regret. Have you run into that before? How do you kind of balance, like, oh, we want to be the first, we want to be first up, we want to be first in line. Has that ever bitten you before? And how do you kind of balance making sure you're making the prudent decisions and not always just trying to be innovative?
Well, first of all, when it comes to technology, I like something that's proven, that's been tested. So I'm not the type of CEO that's going to, purchase a fintech or, completely go outside of, the norm. I like something that other credit unions have tested or banks have tested. It might be cutting edge, but it's been tested because, ultimately, it's our members' money, and we need to as leaders, not just me as the CEO, but the entire senior management team, we need to be held accountable for that. So in all the decisions that we've made, we've always performed our due diligence. We've met with other credit unions. We've brought industry leaders in, and I'm very, methodical when it comes to that. And it may appear as if I'm first to market, but I've performed my due diligence. Okay. So I'll give you an example. At CAHP Credit Union, I wanted to add wealth management services. I had the post-certified class so that we could offer financial wellness for our members and they've received credit. But I knew that we needed to offer wealth management services. And it's something that we had talked about for several years. The board of directors at our annual education symposium, and then in the fall at our planning session, we'd bring industry experts in, and I'd bring credit unions from all over. In Michigan, I brought David Snodgrass, one of his leaders, and they have a phenomenal wealth management program. So we flew him in, and then we flew someone in from CUNA Mutual Group, and we discuss it and go through it and talk about it as a team and say, what does this mean to our members? How will it impact the way we serve them? And how will we help them through their various life stages? So that process took many years for us to choose the right partner and decide the right path, because ultimately we ended up creating our own wealth management services department where we have in-house wealth management advisors who pass their Series 65, and they offer those services. So we lease those employees to Integrity Financial, and we chose to partner with a registered investment advisor. And we did that because I think that when you talk about trends, I think people are moving away from the traditional, broker, and they're moving more to an RIA because they have a higher fiduciary responsibility when they're working with our membership. So yeah, we're very methodical, and we perform our due diligence, and we do what's right for our members.
Excellent.
Yeah, but
let's
ultimately, I have such a great team. They help us make a good decision, and I have a wonderful board of directors who they are willing to take the time and sit through, the symposium, sit through presentations with industry experts, and that's how we make sound financial decisions for the credit union.
Well, let's transition to California. It was painful for Lori and I when Brad and Jen moved out of the state, but
I think more Jen than me.
But anyway, they went to California, and it's been such an incredible journey out there, what has transpired. I'd like you to kind of recount the early days of going out there. How did it happen that you ended up in California, associated with California Highway Patrol? And then just some of the early things that you brought to light and attentions, like, hey, what about the program chips? And is there any connection between them and us? And it's just a fascinating story. So if you'd kind of walk us through, you're leaving Wisconsin, you're going to California. How does all this unfold?
And was there any culture shock? I mean, I guess there's a little bit of culture shock across those lines.
Well, first of all, I've never had that issue. I lived in Japan when I was younger. I attended university in Tokyo, so I'm, I can make friends easy. I was raised on a farm, so we're when you're raised on a farm, I think what it did for me is my grandfather made me appreciate people and spending time with people. And regardless of whether you're in Wisconsin or you're in California, people are people.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yep.
But moving out here, in my early career, I said Don Severa was such a huge part of my development. When I was at Forward Financial, Barry Gillette became a mentor and a wonderful friend of both me and Jen. And Barry and his wife Carol are still close friends to this day, and I greatly appreciate their friendship and the time that he took early on, or I guess I'll say midway in my career. And the reason we met Barry is from Niagara, Wisconsin. So it's funny, the connection, right?
Right.
So Barry, he was born and raised in Niagara. His wife was born and raised in Niagara. His mother and his mother-in-law belonged to the Niagara Area Credit Union, and I ended up becoming their personal bankers, like everyone. And so what Barry did early on is he introduced me to the movement in a way that I never would have been connected to the World Council of Credit Unions like I was through him. I never would have been connected to the leadership at that level. And Barry was instrumental in that, Rick. Barry Gillette, I think he's the only individual that served 3 terms as chairman of the World Council of Credit Unions. And he has impacted so many people throughout the world because of his volunteerism.
Yeah.
So Barry, we were on a trip one time and he said, I think you should come to California. And I said, Barry, I'm not going to go to California. I'm a Uper. I'm from Escanaba, Michigan. Well, he connected me. He referred me to a recruiter, and the recruiter talked me into interviewing for the position. So fast forward, I've been there over 10 years, and it's a wonderful organization. It really is, with a fantastic team. And I have been able to, we've been able to do some wonderful things, supporting not only the first responders but their families throughout the state of California. And ultimately what we did is we were able to help our team understand how they impact so many lives throughout the state. Just the Highway Patrol alone is a $4 billion state budget with 12,000 employees. They impact, and they make over 2 million. They interact with over 2 million people per year, and that might mean someone who's lost or someone who is, maybe they're stranded on the side of the road. They impact so many people by serving the communities, and we impact them by being their support system. Yeah. So that's probably the best part of being, at CHP Credit Union, is being able to serve so many people throughout the state. That represents 40 million people here.
Your membership numbers have grown tremendously since you went there. How many members of the Highway Patrol were you serving when you started? How many members are you serving today?
We were just under 9,000, and now we're close to 21,000.
It's fantastic.
But ultimately, it's beyond the 21,000. It's with the financial education. We provide financial education to thousands and thousands of officers and their families every year. And that post class has impacted so many people. My staff, my team, they can be up in front of 2,000 people for one presentation, or they might be in front of 300 people. It really is. We're helping people learn about their credit score, learn how their actions impact how much interest they're going to pay over their lifetime, and we provide them with tools that they can take home so that they can get back on track. And then we'll meet with them and follow up with them to help them learn how to pay the bank less. And I always say that doesn't have to be us. It can be someone else. We're just going to teach you how to pay less interest.
Yeah. So I've worked with Brad's team. The guys who are often up in front of these officers are two fantastic young men, Danny and Logan.
Yeah.
They're just exceptional human beings.
And Jill, you work with Jill too.
And Jill as well.
Yep.
Yes. But they put together an incredible program, and they can do it. They can do it in a half hour. They can do it in an hour. They can do it in a full day session. They can go as in depth as you want.
Yep.
But those officers, when they walk out of there, they have a wonderful picture on everything, how their credit score came about. What does it mean? What does compound interest really mean? How do you set yourself up for your retirement years? And they just do a fantastic job with that. And they are helping these people who are helping the community, but they're helping them get their personal lives together, their financial world together, their financial future together. And people are responding in a wonderful way to what these guys are doing. Just could not be more proud of what you guys are doing to make a difference in their lives.
Well, and Rick, we couldn't have done that without Rick Olson Seminars. I know you've spent a lot of time with them, and I want to thank you for that, because you helped them get to that point. You helped them sharpen the saw, and it's a 4-hour class. Okay, they have to get up and present. I don't know how many people can do that from start to finish, 4 hours. And then quite often they'll take a lunch break and they'll do another 4-hour class in the afternoon.
Right.
So Rick, thank you for helping them build that confidence and help them, fine tune the presentation, because we wouldn't have been able to do it without you. So thank you so much.
Well, it was one of the great honors of my speaking consulting career to just really link in closely with Danny, Logan, and Jill. They were fantastic students. We would get started, and maybe they would misfire a bit on something, and we'd stop it and back it up. And we filmed them in their very early stages, and then we filmed them again after they'd worked on it. And it was remarkable. They really took this to heart. They became very polished professional presenters, and it was just a joy to work with the guys. Let's go back to you coming out there. I think you asked them a question, Brad, early on as you were meeting with the credit union about their relationship with California Highway Patrol, especially the CHIPS program. Ponch and John, could you recreate that? That's a fascinating story.
Nice, Joe. Do you have a Harley?
I don't. I have a Suzuki.
Okay. So yeah, when I started here as the CEO, of course I was asking people, I'm like, have you met Eric Estrada? I'd really like to meet Eric Estrada. and one time I had an officer say, I know Eric Estrada, let's call him. So, I was connected to Eric Estrada, and come to find out, he was connected with so many of the foundations that we serve, the 1199 Foundation, the Widows and Orphans, the Star 6 Foundation. He worked with San Bernardino. He worked in San Diego, and he works all over the United States. Eric is actually a reserve officer, and he qualifies every year, and he volunteers. He's an amazing person. So early on, I was able to see that he could be a great person to represent the credit union and to connect us to our members. And that was actually just the beginning of it. We started with Eric Estrada, and we ended up moving on to and adding Colonel Grossman. You may know him as the team leader from Black Hawk Down. So we have a relationship, and we contract with Colonel Grossman as well. And we also work with Dr. Kevin Gilmartin, who is a phenomenal mind. He's known worldwide and is an expert on post-traumatic stress injury. I wrote an article on that on LinkedIn, and he was the one that taught us about how that, the stress of their job impacts the way they do their work, the way they interact at home, and how we could help our members. What Eric did is Eric helped draw people to the sessions early on, and that was before we had the post-certification. We had to find a way to bring people into the education sessions because, again, we were certified counselors. Then we were able to have the class certified. So partnering with Eric, who is just a wonderful human being and truly cares about everyone he meets, it's unbelievable. He's just a wonderful soul. But he's not only, he's not just that way with first responders. If you see Eric out in the community, he will stop and talk to every single person. I will see him, put down his burger or his Pink's hot dog 5 or 6 times during a meal to talk to people and spend time with them. And that's who Eric Estrada is as a person. And what's funny is I had this idea, probably like you, Joe, of Punch, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And Eric is just amazing. He's just a wonderful human being. So I'd love to introduce you to him someday. And he actually did a podcast for PORAC and for the Highway Patrol. So maybe we can get him on here someday.
Yeah. We'd love that.
That'd be awesome.
I'm going to tell you a very recent Eric Estrada story. I was hanging out with Brad in the fall, and Brad's credit union had sponsored a law enforcement conference over there, and
it was the 100th anniversary of the Highway Patrol. 100 years.
Yeah, very, very special conference. I happened to be there with my wife Lori, with her college friends and their hubbies. There were 7 of us. Happened to be in Palm Springs, California at the very same time that Brad is kind of hosting this major conference. He said, "Hey, come on over, golf in our tournament. Hey, come on over to the session." So we golf in the tournament, and my guys are loving it. And we come to this certain hole, and here's 2 chairs, and Brad's sitting on one chair, and Eric Estrada is sitting on the other chair. And the man, within like a moment, it's like the best friend you've ever met. He's just all in. And it's pictures, it's smiles, it's stories, it's hugs. It was fabulous. And then the next day, Brad said, "Hey, come on over because we got a special speaker." So we went over the next day to hear Captain Sully speak, which was amazing. And Eric was there. So Eric came and sat in our row with us as we listened to Captain Sully. And so Eric he met us on the golf course. Now he's meeting our gals at this conference. And this gal, Missy, said, my niece, I think she had some kind of a physical challenge thing, but she said, "My niece is all in. She watches you all the time. She loves you. Could I take a picture with you?" And he goes, "No, but you can do a video with me." And they do a video, and he just looks right into the camera, and with all the warmth in the world, talks to this gal, calls her by name, has this about a 90-second monologue with her about how fabulous her name is, her auntie is, what her future's like. I mean, it was just spectacular. And these guys, it just blew them away. But he is an incredible human being, for sure.
He's wonderful. I am probably one of the fondest memories I have with Eric was working with the Secretary of Transportation, who's basically the boss of the Highway Patrol, was instrumental in supporting Special Olympics here in California. And they have a huge event at UC Davis in Northern California. Thousands of attendees, thousands of athletes. It's an amazing event. And I was talking to Eric about it, and I said, would you go talk to the group? Would you present to them? So we brought Eric up from Burbank. He still lives down by you, Joe.
Yeah.
And we brought him to the event. And when he went up on stage, he changed their lives so much. I have a clip of it, and I'll share it with you someday. And that's who Eric is. He didn't charge anyone for that. He didn't expect to get anything in return. He did it because he wanted to make their day. And those athletes were just so excited when Eric Estrada was on stage. It was like, who cares about the Secretary of Transportation? We want to see Eric Estrada.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. I grew up watching them faithfully every whatever night of the week that was, man.
It was the best.
Yeah. And then I go out on my Stingray Schwinn banana seat bicycle with the 5-speed stick shifter, and I was riding right along with them down the neighborhood.
Yeah. You know, it's an interesting story. If you ever talk to him, he'll explain how he really was instrumental in changing the rights for actors. And he was one of the first actors to go up against the studio and say, this isn't right. You're earning too much money. The actors, the employees need to make more money. And if you recall, he actually stepped away for a season, and Bruce Jenner came in, and then they brought him back. They came back crawling to him. And he is so modest, but he has helped so many people, and he's talked about so many of the mature actors in history who made pennies, and the studios made all the money. And he did that. He stood up for what was right. And that's what I think credit unions do. So that's why I think we get along so well.
That's great. Brad, could you kind of pull back the curtain a little bit on the California Highway Patrol? I mean, everybody's intrigued with them, but you know them so well. I'm so impressed with the academy that they go through. I'm so impressed with the number that's given to each officer. I'm so impressed with how they're honored in retirement. Could you kind of share some insights on what that looks like?
So again, the Highway Patrol, largest highway patrol in the United States, 12,000 employees. It's just a wonderful organization. The academy is the only live-in academy where you have to be on site for 6 months. So it's intense. It's like going to military boot camp. About 40% fail out, but I'll tell you, a ton of them come back and they try again and again, because the standard is set so high for the Highway Patrol that it's the gold standard. And you wouldn't think, you might think, well, why do people fail out? A lot of people fail out on the driving because they have to be able to control the car at a high rate of speed or on a skid pan. So a skid pan, sorry. And we were able to do something really exciting. They invited us to go on the course and actually drift at over 120 miles an hour.
That's awesome.
Now they told me, they said, no, some people get sick, so tell us if you're going to throw up. but I made it and I loved it, and it was a great experience. But I think that speaks volumes about the organization and what they expect out of their cadets. And what's so touching is if you're at a graduation, you see how proud the family is, the family members who are there, and they'll actually allow the commissioner, or even if the governor's there, they will allow the family to come up on stage and be a part of the process. And I think that's why the Highway Patrol is so different, because you talked about heart in your previous podcast. There's so much heart in the organization, and they want the family to be a part of that. They also respect that officer for their entire career, and then after their career, they only will give one number for that officer, and that officer will have that number, that badge number, for their entire life. So when they're provided with that badge when they graduate, and when they retire, they receive that badge, and no one else will ever have that number again.
And the
So
number, Brad, from my recollection, is all sequential. So you can look at an officer's number and
yes.
kind of know when he joined the highway patrol, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of like at credit unions, when a member says, well, I'm
Yeah.
number 11 or I'm number 22, right?
Right.
Been around a while, yeah.
Or
Yeah.
6,300,240.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it is just, it's a fine organization. And they support all of the first responders. So they support not only sheriff and police, they also support other first responders throughout the state. They're the glue, right, that holds everything together. And especially during the pandemic, when some agencies were short staffed, it was the highway patrol that stepped up. It was the highway patrol that went in to help. Now all of the departments did a great job, sheriff and PDs alike, but I feel that because they're statewide, they can really step in and help out in areas that some agencies or some departments can't.
I love the motto of your credit union, that you're serving those who serve us. I think that's a fabulous motto. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I would love to do our round robin questions from the generational aspect.
Okay.
We're three gen for a purpose, because we represent 3 different generations of leadership. And you bring a unique perspective, because you, as a CEO at age 23 and ever since, these questions will come, these answers from you will come differently than some of the other CEOs we spoke with. And I love the different perspective. So I'm going to start with John, and we'll work our way around the circle about a question from each of the generations' perspective to you as a CEO.
All right, so give me a second to frame this question here. So I'm a big fan of the concept of you need to have your own house in order before you go out and save the world, right? Before you try to change the world. Brad, you are a hero without a cape. I mean, let's think about all the impact you have. Let's think, okay, you serve first responders in itself. You are helping their financial lives become better. And by easing that stress of their home life, they are going to be more effective at their jobs. And that's, that's the first responders, not to mention, everyone else you touch, anyone who's been in the credit counseling world, you're hitting all 3 areas. You've got the credit counseling, helping people get out of debt. You're providing loans and opportunities for people. And then we're also providing wealth management services. So you are just like taking control of the full financial lives of all these people that are impacting so many other people. So you're saving the world, buddy. This is really, I'm honestly sitting here, been waiting to say this because I've been so inspired by this conversation. But let's talk about you. Let's reel that back into your own household. What message do you have for our young, millennials, Gen Zs, young generation? That, okay, you mentioned you've got a daughter. You need to be present and in your household for your wife and your daughter. You mentioned you had some really good advice at the beginning of your career on getting some sleep. So let's talk about, how do you manage being a young, successful CEO or any sort of position, along with saving the whole world and the state of California, as far as I'm concerned, but still take care of yourself, take care of your sleep habits, have enough time for yourself and family?
I think a lot of people waste time on the screens. I think they waste a lot of time with whatever screen they like to use. I don't know if it's the iPad, the TV, the telephone, and that's something that I've never had an issue with. In fact, I was just telling Rick recently that I just joined LinkedIn within the last 7 weeks because I was forced to do it, and but I think that's where a lot of, and I feel for the younger generation, because they were raised with these apps and with this technology, and you get into that habit, right? And how do you stop that? How do you say, I'm going to delete that app? I don't have to have Facebook. I don't have to have LinkedIn. I don't have to watch Netflix tonight. So first and foremost, I would tell people to write down where you spend your time every day, every week, every month, and add it up. Just like people say, add up how much you spend on a coffee. Look at how much time you spend on your screen, right? And take that and put the phone down and put the iPad down. Because if something's bleeding or burning, the police will show up, right? or the fire department will show up. So my wife and I, we're trying to teach our daughter. She's 8, and I know you have a young child. Do you have a daughter or a son?
Daughter, she's turning 2 tomorrow, and then we've got one expecting coming in January.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, what's interesting is watching her. I can see that her friends, even at a young age, they have these little mini video games and they have their iPads, and she doesn't even think about that because at night our phones are plugged in on the charger and she can see that we are engaged with her. And I think that we need to learn to do that in our society for ourselves. We need to unplug. And Rick taught us years ago, he said, read a book. You don't have to be watching TV until, 11 o'clock or midnight. And a lot of people do that. They get stuck in Netflix and they can't get out of it because they want to suggest something to watch, right?
Yeah.
So, my wife and I, we try to stick to a routine. And luckily I have a wife who she's so organized, and I couldn't do it without her. I honestly could not be the leader I am if I didn't have such a strong woman, a strong mother, strong partner. She's the reason why I'm successful in everything that I do. And that's what I recommend to my staff. I try to teach the young people. And I also tell them, if you want to move up, ask to be involved, right? So what we do is if we ever have a project at the credit union, okay, we will send it out to everyone, right? And we'll say, who would like to be involved in this? Recently, we upgraded our lending platform so that we could improve our processing time for our home equity loans, okay? And we had to partner with various third parties so that we could have the title and the insurance, and everything would be validated immediately. So we can now close a HELOC in 3 to 4 days.
All right.
Okay. It's fully automated, right? And also from a compliance standpoint, it's a lot easier. But we invite everyone. So we'll say contact center, who wants to be involved? Lending department, who wants to be involved? Compliance department, who would like to be involved? IT. And then they volunteer. But if you agree to volunteer, you will attend all the meetings and you will learn the process, right? So what we've seen is I've seen some brilliant minds who I don't know how they can do what they do with the technology, and they help design these systems and upgrade them like nobody's business. I couldn't do it, but I think involving them and challenging them to be involved in those types of projects, which are huge projects for the credit union, that helps them see how the sausage is made, right? It just doesn't go poof, there's a new lending platform. Have fun.
Very good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to transition now into the middle management. And one of the things that came to mind as I listened to your story, Brad, is that I have no doubt that along the way you have been wooed and invited to take leaps out of the credit union world into other jobs because of your track record, because of the early leadership experience that you've got, and the success stories that we've already heard, I'm sure many of which we haven't heard. So what do you tell to a middle manager who is on the cusp of, do I take the education, the experience, my life experience as well, and leverage that into another arena, or stick with what I've done and so that I can contribute even more to the organization that got me to where I am? Because that's a big question a lot of the middle managers have. And what would you say to those who are kind of trying to figure out, do I stay or do I go?
Well, I think it starts with the organization being transparent. So what we have is we have IDPs for all of our employees. So we have individual development plans that are in place so that their manager can sit down and say, what are your goals? What are your strengths? What would you like to learn, right? And then if you hold those conversations on a regular basis, it allows the employee to say, well, when do you think so-and-so is going to retire? Or do you think you're going to expand that department? Do you think I could go into that department, right? And then what that does is that allows the manager to set up maybe an education program, or maybe they send them to a conference, or maybe they involve them in a project, right? Like I was just talking about with Meridian Link. And that, I think, is the where I think a lot of organizations fail, is they don't hold the conversations. because they have just a form that they follow, and they don't actually set up an individual development plan for each employee. And the employees who are excited about taking on more responsibility, learning more, they will ask those questions, but you have to hold the meetings to do that. So something that we've done for years are retention interviews, right? To sit down and talk to the employee and say, are you happy, right? What can we do to help you be happy when you come into work? And I think that that's critical. And then you tie that into the IDP and then into their education plan.
That sounds very refreshing. I've been an employee for quite a long time now, and I've never had a single IDP nor an interview that said, so what are your goals? What is it that you want to do, and how can we help you get there? So that sounds really, really nice.
Well, luckily we have great leaders, and they're willing to hold those conversations, because it takes a lot of effort and it takes time.
Yeah,
it really does.
No, that's intentional, and I see the benefit greatly. So thank you. That's a great idea.
And the other thing that we do,
go ahead.
Just getting back to what we do, it starts with the onboarding. It really starts with explaining the structure of the organization, going through what their opportunities would be so that they understand all the various departments. And what we do for the first week is they don't talk about products and services. They talk about why we were formed. They learn about who we serve. And then we start educating them. They have to read QBQ by John Miller, and we want them to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. They have to study Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and then we transition into why the Highway Patrol was formed and why we're here to serve them. And I think holding those conversations are what set us up to succeed over the long run.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
One of the cornerstones of what I've been teaching for years is that the moment you get into management, you are in the people building business.
Yeah.
That is what management is all about. And Joe, I'm sorry that you didn't have more of those kinds of folks in your life who were just really tapped into Joe McCarthy career path, and what your talents and gifts were and how do we fully utilize that. But that's a part of our mission, is to help leaders understand it's not about putting your head down and working hard. It's about working really smart, and it's about multiplying yourself in the people who are around you. And the managers who feel like I'm going to do all this stuff so that I can look good usually don't look very good. And it's the ones who it's like, all my effort is going to be channeled toward you to help you reach your goals. Those managers do extremely well. So that's been my ongoing quest, and may it be your quest as long as you're relating to leaders and businesses and organizations. Help them transition over to being people builders, multipliers of people. So I get to ask a question too, Brad. I'm usually the guy who says, how do we finish strong? It's about legacy. It's about wrapping things up in our career. But I want to take a little different track tonight. One of my favorite examples of someone finishing strong in the workplace is your mother-in-law. And I know that she's going to be listening to this podcast. So I'm just going to say a word. Debbie, you were an amazing person to work with. Mm-hmm. And I always loved working with you when you and Brad were there in Niagara and I would come over. You were an amazing person to work with. I so admired what you did and how well you did it and how you did it to the very end. So instead of asking just in general philosophically about people finishing strong and leaving a legacy, just talk to us a little bit about Debbie and what she was like and how she did finish strong. But I'm just going to put that out there and let you talk about your mother-in-law.
So I think Debbie would tell you a very interesting story. It was when I first started at Niagara Area Credit Union, and I brought the team in. I brought all the managers in and the senior management and the branch managers. And I said, okay, everyone in a room. And we just started writing. I said, let's brainstorm. What things would you like to accomplish within the first 3 months? What would you like to accomplish within the first year? And what would you like to accomplish 5 years down the road? Well, by the time we were finished and Debbie was writing everything down, she said, I thought we were just going to stick to the whiteboard. She said, I didn't realize we were going to do the sticky notes, because we had the large Post-it notes all around the room, the boardroom.
Love it.
But what's great about Debbie is that she was receptive to all the ideas. She wasn't a Debbie Downer.
Right.
she was open to it. And when you're in charge of HR and you're in charge of marketing, and those people report to you, especially in an organization that's been around, since 1948 and is in a small community, right? You have to have someone who's a yes person, right? Who's going to say, yes, I think we can do it. Let's try it.
Yeah.
And that's what Debbie did. And I was there almost a decade, and I could not have accomplished that without having someone like her in that role.
It's great.
That's what I love about her. And also the fact that she was relentless with, getting Jen and I together, and she held a company picnic, which was Jen will tell you it was definitely a setup, because there weren't as many people there as we'd expected.
Just you two?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, when it comes to mother-in-laws, you really did win the jackpot. She's just an amazing person.
Yep.
Brad, this has been a really special evening. We have looked forward to this for so long. The guys, we've been talking about it. We're going to have that Brad interview, and I'm telling you, did not disappoint in any way. Just off the charts. Great interview with you tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And next time we'll do it with Eric Estrada. We'll have him, or we'll have Colonel Grossman on.
Both. Let's bring them on.
Let's do it. So
thank you all. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you taking easy on me. Taking it easy on me, because I don't do these very often. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time as well tonight. Thank you so much.
Well, you got a bright future in this, so go ahead and do some more. And yes, we would welcome a chance to do a podcast with you and Eric. That would be outstanding. John, you want to say anything, and then we'll have Joe wrap up our evening.
Well, I think I already showed my affection for you, calling you a hero and everything else I said, Brad, but thank you. Your insights, everything you shared today is just really, really neat and cool. On a personal level, the parallels between you and I are just I can't I can't ignore it, and I really hope we can talk again some other time, and not just about our life experiences and our work experiences, but on a philosophical level at how you approach leadership and everything. It has been an absolute delight. So great to meet you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you,
Brad. I do look forward to getting to meet you in person, since we're both in California. There's no reason why that can't happen.
Exactly.
I do appreciate what you represent, how that you've taken just that whole story about the Walmart and the Home Depot, and people were saying, no, it's not available. And you said, well, how do we know that? We don't know unless we ask.
Yeah.
And I just love that open-mindedness and open-heartedness, that we don't know until we try, right? It's only impossible until you do it. I love that phrase, right? And so I just love your attitude, your energy. You give credit to all the people who poured into your life along this way, which is just a great model for all of us, because none of us get to where we are alone.
Right.
We didn't even get into this world alone. So I appreciate that. It looks like you got something to say before I close.
I'll leave you with one thought.
Yeah.
I purchased that piece of property, and it's a big lot, okay, in between Home Depot. I mean, we built a retail center on it with several businesses. I purchased that for $500,000. Okay. I can't even buy the dirt that my house is on in Sacramento for $500,000.
No chance.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, I know that feeling all too well, brother.
And I think that's the greatest challenge moving forward that credit unions need to address is how will this younger generation afford the cost of living today? When you see where we're at today, especially in California, moving into stagflation and dealing with the cost of living here, we have to find a way to help the next generation. Otherwise, they're not going to be homeowners. And that's truly where I think, our greatest challenges as a credit union movement is how can we address that issue?
Well, that hits very close to home. I've got two daughters, ages 15 and 13, and I'm thinking that every day, how in the world are they going to carve out a niche where they can afford to own their own home? Because that's been so important in our lives, and we've been able to provide stability for them that way. But you're right, on a single income, that seems pretty impossible in today's market, today's economy.
At Balance, we have an affordable housing program, and affordable housing there is $750,000. That's an affordable home.
Right. Yeah, it's insane. So, there's so much we could go onto, and perhaps we'll have a part 2 with Eric Estrada. That would be fabulous. But on behalf of Rick Olson, who you've known for a long time, John and I, who are becoming quickly closer friends with you, thank you, Brad, again for your transparency, your openness, your willingness to just go with the flow. We didn't have a script here. You didn't know where this was going to go, yet you were willing to jump in and just share it from your heart, which is the openness, the authenticity, the transparency is powerful. And telling the stories of how things, how the theories apply in real life. It's been very valuable for me personally. I know it will be for our audience, and I just look forward to continuing this relationship with you.
Me too. Take care.
All right. So on behalf of
take care. Bye-bye.
thank you, Brad, and God bless all of you. And until we meet again.